We think of the sun as a comfort. We think of illumination as truth. But the ancient world knew that the light can blind just as easily as it guides. They knew that the most beautiful face on Olympus belonged to a god who carried a silver bow and left a trail of plague, prophecy, music, and madness in his wake. Myths and legends. Apollo. Before he could bring illumination to the world, he had to be born in the dark. His mother, the Titaness Leto, was hunted across the earth by the venomous jealousy of the Queen of Heaven. A decree had been issued. No piece of solid ground under the sun could offer Leto a place to give birth. Devoid of refuge, she fled to the shifting waves of the Aegean Sea until she found Delos, a barren, floating rock that was not anchored to the ocean floor and therefore exempt from the curse. For 9 days and 9 nights, Leto writhed in agony, clutching a sacred palm tree while the queen held back the goddess of childbirth on Olympus. When the divine infant finally broke into the light, the floating island was suddenly anchored to the seabed by pillars of adamant. The barren rocks burst into golden flowers and the waves sang. He did not cry as a helpless newborn. He broke from his swaddling clothes, demanded a silver bow, and looked toward the north, seeking the monster that had terrorized his mother. After his birth, Apollo immediately grew into divine power and descended upon the cliffs of Mount Parnassus. Deep within a sulphurous cavern lived Python, a monstrous serpent of old chaos, sent by the queen to hunt his mother. The air inside the chasm was thick with rot and the stench of decay. Python rose from the darkness, a mass of scales and fangs that had choked the surrounding valleys in shadow for generations. The young archer did not flinch. He drew back his silver bowstring, the tension ringing through the cavern like a funeral bell. He loosed an arrow of pure light, then another and another. He rained 100 arrows into the throat of the beast, filling the dark cave with white fire until the serpent rolled over into the stone and died. It was a violent, bloody conquest. He took the sanctuary for himself, buried the monster beneath the earth, and established his oracle over the rotting bones, proving that his light did not avoid the darkness, but conquered it through absolute force. His arrows, however, were not reserved only for monsters. To cross him was to invite an invisible, agonizing death. During the siege of Troy, a priest of Apollo knelt beside the Greek ships, crying out to the sky because Agamemnon had dishonored both him and his daughter. The god heard the prayer. Homer writes that he descended from the peaks of Olympus like the night itself, his silver bow clanging against his shoulder with every furious step. He sat on a ridge overlooking the Greek camp and began to shoot. He did not aim at the walls. He aimed at the breath of the men. For 9 days, his arrows carried a burning, unseen fever that ripped through the tents, slaughtering horses, hounds, and warriors by the thousands. The smoke of funeral pyres blotted out the sun. He was the lord of medicine, but he was also the infection. He showed the kings of men that the same hand that heals can incinerate an empire when his pride is wounded. This duality defined every action of his immortal life. He was the patron of music, yet his art carried a terrifying edge. When a satyr named Marsyas found a divine aulos and dared to challenge Apollo to a musical contest, the god accepted. The satyr played with passion and the wild energy of nature. But Apollo took up his golden lyre, turned the instrument upside down, and sang a melody of such cold, mathematical perfection that the trees themselves wept. The god won the contest, and for the crime of hubris, Apollo dragged the satyr to a pine tree and flayed him alive, peeling the skin from his muscles while the forest watched in absolute silence. He was the god of harmony, but it was a harmony enforced through terror. Now the story reveals its deeper meaning. Apollo is the personification of the terror of light. He represents the human drive for purity, logic, prophecy, and art. But his myth is a warning that an obsession with absolute perfection can become monstrous. He is the sun that brings life to the crops, but can also burn the field to ash. We need his myth because it reminds us that reason and beauty are not gentle forces. They are sharp, demanding, and often intolerant of human weakness. He is the reminder that before you step into the light, you must be prepared to face the blinding clarity of a God who offers no mercy to the flawed. The Archer of Heaven stands upon Mount Parnassus, his silver bow resting against the stone. The music plays, the oracle speaks. But while he purifies the mind, his twin sister tracks a beast through the deep mud of the forest. Holding a silver bow and waiting for the sun to drop beneath the trees. Myths are not records of the past. They are mirrors of the human mind, passed down, reshaped, and remembered, long after the world that created them disappeared.